Fargo Fresh. I'm Conrad Fargo. We're here with Josh Wojtek from Rootstock Wine Company, and we are going to be talking about everything fresh in Fargo, North Dakota, and in the world about Fargo and about our guests here. So something I've inserted into the well, first let me say hi, Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hello.
I've entered into I go and I type in your case I typed in wine into the YouTube machine, and I asked it, where are we missing content? And so it let me know that as far as wine goes, people are searching for this and they're coming up wanting at the moment.
Sure.
So maybe you can fill us in on some information if you have any. If you don't, we move on to the news stories. But what came up was Flavors Wine Coconut Cream Cake.
Okay.
And Exquisite Pleasure Wine Coconut Cream Cake. Those were the two big ones.
Coconut cream cake.
So definitely coconut cream cake is this like hot button topic that people are searching for and coming up wanting. Can you give us a fresh take on why that is? Do you have any wines that have coconut? Why coconut? Not just coconut. Is there coconut wine? You can make wine out of anything, right?
I mean, you can. I mean, it wouldn't. Yeah, because I mean, what you do would basically, you think about like, straining out like coconut water and there's sugars in it. So like basically the whole process of making anything alcohol, whether it be wine, whether it be beer, whether it be sake, is that there are sugars and starches that are within those particular products that you introduce yeast to. The yeast eats those sugars and then converts that to alcohol. Now, what kind of style you want to make is largely going to be determined by, do you stop the fermentation process? How much sugar do you want to leave still in there? So you look at something like a grape like Moscato. Moscato is something that a lot of people know of when they think of sweet wine, and it is a grape that has a lot of natural residual sugar in it. However, the more traditional way to make that particular wine is to make it more of in a dry style. So they will ferment out all the sugars out of it, and they can make a dry style muscat that is, got a lot of those floral notes, maybe even something like coconut cream out of it, and then but still be dry, not have any like sweetness, not any residual sugar left over in there.
So when you talk about liquor a lot, we talk about notes. I hear that said all the time. So like I do the whiskey, not the wine always, but it's like honey notes and this note and that note. There's no honey in the whiskey.
Correct.
There's no coconut cream in the wine, but is coconut cream a common note?
I would not say so. I mean, okay, so like when I think of coconut cream, if the first thing that comes to my mind as far as a beverage that naturally has coconut cream flavors, but would not have any added coconut cream would be like Nigori sake. It's unfiltered sake. Tends to have a lot of those like pina colada or banana or like those kind of tropical fruit notes. And then the consistency of it, because it's unfiltered, you got that like almost cream pie, rice pudding kind of quality to it.
No,
so
I took your sake class.
Yes.
But my brain is bad. Nigori, what is that? Is that the one where it's
chunks? There's chunks.
Yeah,
in it.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
unfiltered sake.
Yeah. I have that in my sitting in my fridge right now. I think
and you definitely want to chill Nigori sake. But yeah, that's like the first thing that pops in my mind where I'm like, oh, for sure. But you also got to remember too that tasting is a very subjective experience. It is not objective. So you could read a review by a wine expert, and that says, detect, it has notes of this apple and blah blah blah, and you taste it and go, I'm not getting that. And you know what? You're not wrong. Because your taste buds are like a fingerprint; they're exclusive to you. So typically, as a sommelier, the thing that I do when I'm talking to people about wine is I will say, a lot of people get this particular note, or this is the kind of notes that are oftentimes got, or I can even say, this is what I taste. I'll make sure to preface it that way, but also not in a way that like says, this is also what you're going to taste. This is what I taste. I tend to like to talk about it more in terms of the effect it has as opposed to specific tasting notes. Because let's say, for example, somebody's talking about, coconut being a good example. Coconut is something that you associate with a lot of like tropical stuff. So you can have tropical flavors. Coconut could be a tropical flavor. Pineapple could be a tropical flavor. Mango could be a tropical flavor. Passion fruit could be a tropical flavor. But if you're not someone who has eaten passion fruit or has eaten star fruit or eaten papaya or eat those on a regular basis, being able to pick out like, oh, I'm getting papaya notes out of this might be a little bit of a stretch. But to say, hey, this reminds me of like a, a fruit cup. That is something that maybe that for that particular person is associated more because they had a bunch of fruit cups as a kid. And that's that like fruit cocktail, that syrup, flavor. And they're like, that's what I associate with tropical fruit flavors is this kind of ripe, pineapple-y, whatever. And for anybody that's eaten a lot of tropical fruit, that there's a big range between like green underripe papaya and ripe papaya or green underripe pineapple and ripe pineapple. But you're not really getting into those subtleties unless you're, someone in my profession. What's the difference between those? So if you're saying something like coconut cream, that's different to me than talking about just coconut because coconut's, very, very subtle, mild flavor. If you have like coconut water, that's a very subtle flavor of coconut, but coconut cream is almost more that like overripe, baked, sugary, almost like brulee kind of quality to it. And then in that particular case, I'm looking for something that not only has those flavors, but probably a lot of like oak and vanilla, like new French oak or something like that. That's going to incorporate a lot of those cream brulee kind of effects to it as well. But that's just the effect of it, not necessarily like it tastes exactly like a coconut cream pie. It's, vanilla and some coconut notes, and together they all kind of seem to meld and make this coconut cream pie flavor. And that's what most people tend to, taste or feel. One thing I do like to talk about is that, your tongue, we've learned it as a kid, you have the tongue, where it's got sweet, salty, bitter, sections of your tongue. And a lot of people think that that's all that there is in those terms of those particular sections. You taste sweet on the tip of your tongue, you taste bitter more on the back of your tongue, salty and sour on the sides. But truthfully, your taste buds are all over the place. So you can also taste sweet on the back of your tongue. You can also taste, bitter on the front or sides, salty. And some people have more taste buds than others per, like square inch or whatever on your tongue. And for those people, we talk a lot about picky eaters or picky drinkers. Those are the people that experience things like intensely. And that's why they're picky, is because they can have a bite of something, they're tasting like 30 different flavors out of that, where someone with less taste buds just tastes good, they're tasting maybe one flavor out of that whole bunch. And that's not something that that's something that you're born with. It's genetically, but with tasting, you can also train your palate to taste, and that's what you do, obviously, in my profession, to taste those sorts of things. But I mean, every single time, whether I'm tasting whiskey, whether I'm tasting wine, there's always something new I'm learning. I'm training my palate for.
So it's just something you're born with for some people, I guess.
It is.
Some people are just genetically gifted
Some are just genetically
to be good
gifted.
drinkers.
Yeah, sure.
Good at drinking.
I would say the word taster. They're good tasters. Drinker is a different thing entirely.
It sure is.
Because we haven't even talked about the alcohol effect of any of that sort of stuff, or tolerance or anything like that. But yeah, that's the interesting thing that a lot of people don't tend to think about, and really. And that's talking about, wine or any kind of beverage in a vacuum, and then you add food pairing onto that too. And certain things are, what I'd like to talk about is complementary versus contrasting. Sometimes the flavor of the wine or the beverage you're trying is similar to what the food you're doing, and they kind of happy marriage, Then there's also a thing like where opposites attract. Sometimes, like I kind of mentioned earlier about the fat and the tannins, those are two opposite effects that balance out well together. Another one would be like Riesling. High acidic, maybe slightly fruity wine pairs really well with spicy Asian food, like Thai food. I mean, Thai food and Riesling or Gewürztraminer is excellent pairing, but they're opposites. It just kind of helps sweet helps to kind of balance out spicy. And then acidity, you think about like, you like Mexican food where you like squeeze a little bit of lime over the top of it to kind of like, tame the spice a little bit. Same kind of effect if you have something that's a highly acidic wine.
Well, now you're talking about food before lunch. So that's always the problem here. I'm always hungry. We're going to move into Elton John with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. When we come back, we will talk about your favorite restaurant, among other places. Get me good and hungry. But first, Elton John with Yellow Brick Road. Don't go nowhere.